Balance changes are coming to Clash of Clans with the goal of providing more variety in attack strategies to Town Hall 17. Now, whilst these changes are announced now, it is just to give you a heads up, and the team has said these will not go live before the 30th of June. So any competitive players don't have to worry about these impacting the World's qualifiers. Seemingly, they will go live shortly after that, but we don't have an exact date as of yet. The first item on the list is a nerf to the scatter shot, and the goal of this is to give smaller troops with less HP a bit of an easier ride, because currently a lot of the meta attack strategies involve Super Yetis, Root Riders, things with a lot of HP that can deal with the amount of damage moving through the base. The DPS of the scatter shot is being decreased, and that is also decreased at a couple of levels prior to Town Hall 17, just so that the scaling of levels is also appropriate. That means the scatter shot damage-wise has around about a 5% decrease at maximum level. However, splash damage for the scatter shot is also being nerfed. This is not actually displayed in the info screen, but the stats I will display for you on the screen, so that we do have a nerf to both the DPS and the splash of the scatter shot, and also there is a nerf to the supercharge of the scatter shot. Whilst here it looks like it's a 40% decrease, that's just because the supercharge only gives you an extra 5 DPS, and that is being decreased to 3. So technically, Town Hall 14 through 17 getting a little bit easier with this nerf, but again, it's to target lesser HP troops that aren't really in the meta right now, and you'll see once we move on to the troop buffs which ones the team has in mind. There is another nerf on defense for the walls. Only HP, obviously, 16% nerf at maximum level, and again, this scales through some of the previous levels and previous town halls, but the goal of this is to try and make attacks less reliable on wall-breaking troops, such as Root Riders, or avoiding them altogether, such as with dragons. I'm not sure if this is going to have as big of an impact as they hope, because a wall breaker will still just bust the wall anyway. Yes, it means your king or the yak might be able to break through the wall a little bit easier, but we'll just have to see how this one plays out. However, moving to the troops, there are a bunch of them getting buffs. Clearly, none of these are for Root Riders, Valkyries, regular dragons, anything that is in the meta right now, although one of them is somewhat in the meta, and it's good to see a bit of a buff. However, starting out, we have the Dragon Rider, getting an increase in hit points. We did previously see a lot of the Royal Champion charge into Dragon Rider attacks, but it's basically moved back across to all Dragon approaches due to time fails with Dragon Riders. However, maybe we'll see them coming back into the meta a little bit. Should you not be a Warden Charge Rocket Loon attacker, maybe you might even want to try a Hero Charge into Dragon Rider attacks. Not sure it will have that big of an impact on the meta, but it's definitely a troop that is underused, and that's one thing that the team said here is the troops that are getting buffs, all of them are underused and underperform. So that means the use rate of these troops is lower than average, and when they are used, the 3-star success rate, the hit rate, is also lower than average. So that's why these are the troops getting buffs. The Thrower is definitely an interesting one, being the next one on the list, because the Thrower I still use when it comes to some fireball attacks and I am charging through the center of a base. I do like to opt for the Throwers as a smash attack following the fireball. They will be getting a HP increase of around about 15% and approximately a 5% damage boost as well. So I'm happy to see that one. I do like to mix things up when it comes to my war attacks. And like I said, I opt for the Thrower quite a lot. One thing that I don't tend to use is the Miner. In terms of both damage and hit points, it gets around about a 10% boost at maximum level. And again, they can't just change the level at Town Hall 17 for the most part. Although they could, it would be a bit weird when it comes to scaling of levels and upgrades. So that's why this troop is also getting changed at lower levels. And maybe the hit rate is also decreased for those lower levels as well. I'm not too sure. but I would guess it's more to make sure that there's not just a huge jump in stats when it comes to miners at Town Hall 17. Whilst there's a bunch of changes to Super Troops, I guess it makes sense to mention the Super Miner here. A lot of the levels for the Super Miner are getting changed in terms of the hit points and the damage per second. Not as big of an increase when it comes to the regular Miner, and although I know that Super Miners can work, I've seen some people use them. I think it was back when the Miners got a new level in the February or March update. Super Miners somewhat had a little bit of a comeback, but it was very short-lived. Clearly, they haven't been working out right now in the meta, so they're getting a very slight buff, but nothing crazy, nothing that I think is going to bring them right back into the meta. But granted, I haven't gone over all of the thresholds for this. Sometimes it might mean that they can take down a building so much more efficiently due to that small increase. However, due to how successful dragons and root riders are and how used to those strategies that people are, I'm not sure there will be a big influx across to super miners, but you can let me know in the comments based on any of these changes if you plan to use the troops. One troop that will be giving me a benefit is the healer. This gets an increase to the hero healing at levels 8, 9, and 10. It's important that it is all three of those levels. I'll explain why in a second. But it's important that you recognize this is only the hero healing. So this is not going to have an impact when you have root riders smashing through the base. However, it is going to make warden charges even more powerful, which I think is good because it is arguably the strongest approach in the game right now if you can use it. So you get rewarded for having good skill in the game. It means that likely when it comes to the World Championships, maybe we will see a little bit more of the Warden Walk attacks and not just Root Riders and Dragons, because this hero healing is not really going to impact RC dives, Root Rider charges. Obviously it doesn't impact dragons. The one thing that it does benefit is the healer puppet. Because remember, when you spawn the healers from the Archer Queen, they are not max level healers. At the highest equipment level, they are level 8. So this will buff the healer puppet when it comes to the regular mode of Clash of Clans. But because in hard mode, the equipment is level capped, they actually won't spawn level 8 healers. If you use the equipment in hard mode, you will spawn level 7 healers and you won't get this slight increase. However, like I said, when it comes to Warden charges, the healer puppet in regular mode, you will get that slight boost. Moving along though, the troop I was referring to that is kind of in the meta is the Super Hog Rider. We definitely see a lot of people using this. There's a few members in my clan that use Super Hog Riders all of the time for all of their legend attacks, all of their war attacks. So this will definitely benefit them. And again, whilst the HP increase scales up over, it goes to a 10% buff at maximum level. Hopefully that becomes pretty significant, especially when you combine that with nerfs to the scatter shot, for example. So I think it will hopefully boost that Super Hog Rider attack strategy a little bit more. Maybe this is a case where the use case isn't actually lower because, like I said, I kind of have a feeling more people use the Super Hog Riders, but maybe it's just not having the same success rate as the Dragons and the Root Riders, so they see that as an opportunity to boost that strategy into the meta to give us a little bit more variety, because that's what these changes are for. That's not confirmed, that's my speculation. All they said is these are the goals, and these are the troops being increased because they have low use rate and low hit rate. The Super Bowler gets a HP and a DPS increase. Very similar to the thrower attack strategy, you use those with a regular smash attack. Now that we have the Super Yeti as well, I'm not too sure whether the Super Bowlers will become the method of choice for people again. I was never a big fan of the Super Bowlers. I find them even harder to control than the throwers, to be honest with you. But I know some of my clanmates really did used to like the Super Bowlers. So perhaps the fact that they are getting a buff will hopefully be enough to encourage people to at least try them. And maybe they see success with that, maybe they don't, but at least it will encourage a bit of variety in the meta, get people to try stuff again, which, like I said, I guess is the goal of these changes. Two more on the list. Firstly, we have the Super Wizard. Might be helpful for some more spam style attacks when you put the golems and Super Wizards in a line. I don't know. I don't really see people using Blizzard attacks anymore. So again, a bit of a DPS increase. Not going to be anything that is complained about. Not sure whether these Super Wizards will come back into the meta. However, probably the most interesting change of all of these lists is the Super Minion getting an increase in the number of long shots from 6 to 7. And the reason I say it's the most interesting is because of the Eternal Tome nerf, whereby now you can blimp to the Town Hall, but you obviously have to adapt the attack strategy. You can't use the Eternal Tome and allow the blimp to go all of the way through the base. You have to delay it, maybe clone your way to the Town Hall, or not use Yetis inside the battle blimp. Go back to using the cloned Super Minion because they have a greater range. They can reach the Town Hall from a longer distance. So I will be super excited to see if this does actually become meta alongside dragons and allows people to have another option for the battle blimp if they did used to like that approach, because I have to say that is basically the one big downside of the Eternal Tome nerf. Anyone that did use the blimp attacks, that's really what took a hard nerf. And if you didn't know about the Eternal Tome changes, hopefully you did, but I'll link you across to the video where I broke it all down, and now you will be well and truly informed about it. Let me know what you think of the balance changes though, and I will see you in the next video.